I woke up to bass shaking through my bedroom floor, my coffee cup rattling on the nightstand before I even had a chance to pour it. I stumbled to the window thinking maybe some trucks were passing by, only to see my entire pasture covered in tents, cars, and RVs, like some deranged county fair had exploded overnight on my grandfather's ranch. And right in the middle of it all, standing in my driveway with a damn bullhorn, was none other than Karen Whitfield, the HOA president who had been circling me like a vulture for months. 1,000 strangers on my land, stomping all over 3 generations of blood and sweat, and Karen barking orders like she was the general of this stolen army. If you want to know what war on your sanity looks like, that was it. My name's Jack Miller, 52 years old, retired marine mechanic turned reluctant cattle rancher. 3 years ago, after a divorce that damn near hollowed me out, I inherited this ranch from my grandfather, out here in Franklin County, Texas. 40 acres of rolling pasture, a porch my granddad built by hand in '62, and a herd of black Angus that gave me purpose when the VA pills couldn't quiet the noise in my head. This land saved me, gave me roots again. But peace is fragile, especially when money, sniffing developers start crawling over the hills. Karen moved in with her gated community army about 2 years back. She's the kind of person who weaponizes politeness, big, bleached smile, fake sweet voice, and underneath it, nothing but steel. She created the Franklin Estates HOA the moment those shiny McMansions popped up. And suddenly, my working ranch, which had been here 6 decades before her dream homes, was an Iowa. She came storming up my gravel drive in her pearl white Escalade one Tuesday morning, heels sinking in mud, clipboard at the ready, and said, "Mr. Miller, your fence is unsightly, your cows stink, and your operations are lowering our property values. Move the animals or we'll fine you daily." I stared at her, sweat and dust clinging to me from repairing that very fence she was calling ugly, and managed, "Ma'am, you have no jurisdiction here. This is my land. This fence has stood longer than your HOA has existed." Her eyes went cold, and she fired back. "Times change, Jack. Either adapt or get out." She slapped a thick file against her clipboard, ordinances, easements, community standards, every line designed to make me feel like I was already guilty. That's how she played it, drowning you in paper until you didn't know which way was up. But I wasn't prepared for just how far she'd go. Within days, I was getting notices in the mail about nuisance livestock, petitions signed by HOA families who wanted the cattle gone. Her husband, Brad, spineless as a wet noodle, started skulking around at night, taking photos of cow manure like it was evidence of a crime. And when the county inspector showed up one blistering July morning, I thought it was the end. But the man stepping out of that truck was Jake Wilson, an old Marine buddy I hadn't seen in years. We locked eyes, shook hands hard enough to crack knuckles, and Jake muttered, "Heard some suburban princess is trying to shut you down. Don't worry, brother. I'll write this up clean." That gave me some breathing room. But Karen wasn't done. She found some obscure statute about tax liens and even filed a claim that I supposedly owed thousands in back taxes. I'll never forget the sinking feeling in my gut walking into that courthouse, scraping together my entire retirement fund just to slam cash on the counter and stop her from stealing my land out from under me. She thought I wouldn't sacrifice everything. I proved her wrong. But man, I walked out feeling like my future had just been stripped away for the sake of saving the past. That night, I sat alone on the porch, staring at the pasture in the fading light. And for the first time, I felt it. Maybe she was right. Maybe I was just an old Marine clinging to dirt no one wanted any more. What if this fight was pointless? What if I was just burning out what little I had left against a machine too big to stop? I could almost hear my ex-wife's voice saying, "Jack, you never know when to quit." My hands shook around the coffee mug, and I wondered if I should just sell, cut my losses, and disappear. But then Dolores, my neighbor, 70 years old and sharper than any lawyer, showed up with a casserole and a folder full of courthouse research. "Jack, listen," she said, setting papers in front of me. "Karen's HOA charter expired 2 years ago. Every fee, every violation, every document she's waving around, it's all a sham. She's running a fake HOA." That lit something back up inside me. For weeks, I'd felt cornered, powerless. But in that moment, I realized Karen had overplayed her hand. She wasn't a queen controlling the board. She was a pawn bluffing her way into power. So I got to work. I set trail cams around the property. I dug through public records, found proof she'd been flipping houses without permits, and sent anonymous tips to inspectors. Jake started documenting every irregularity he could find. And then I called in Maxine Carter, an agricultural lawyer with a reputation for skinning predators like Karen alive. When she spread my survey maps and tax records across her desk, she smiled like a wolf. "Jack, not only is her HOA fake, she built their big stone entrance sign on your land. She's been collecting fees for property she doesn't own." The tide was turning, but Karen wasn't going quietly. No, she doubled down. Flyers appeared in mailboxes all over town. Community Safety Festival, family fun and education. And guess where she planned to host it? Right on my ranch. She rolled up trucks at dawn, blasting diesel exhaust into air that had been clean since my grandfather cleared this land, and set up food vendors, bounce houses, a damn DJ booth, all while wearing a neon safety vest and grinning like she owned the place. I confronted her. "This is trespassing. Karen, you don't have my permission." She lifted that clipboard like a badge and sang out, "Oh, but I have permits. Jack, the community has a right to educational events. Your little hobby farm is part of the greater Franklin Estates now." That was the moment I realized she wasn't just crazy. She was dangerous. She was willing to endanger children, families, anyone, just to break me. And the more she talked to cameras, the more rope she gave me to hang her with. Marcus Lane, an investigative reporter, showed up with his gear, hungry for blood. Sheriff Thompson lingered nearby, hands tied by Karen's paperwork but keeping a watchful eye. And my bulls, Thunder, Diesel, and Ranger snorted restlessly behind secured double fencing, sensing something was off. By midday, the crowd was massive. Families trampled my pasture, kids running through hay I'd stacked for winter, music rattling my windows. Karen strutted around, giving interviews about modernizing rural attitudes. Then she made the fatal mistake. She grabbed her bullhorn and announced, "For our grand finale, we'll meet the famous dangerous bulls. Follow me." I froze. She was actually leading 200 people straight toward Thunder's pasture. I rushed to the gate, shouting, "Karen, stop! You're putting lives at risk." She ignored me, swung the latch open, and waved people forward like she was at a petting zoo. Thunder lifted his head at the metallic clang, muscles coiling, hooves scraping dirt. Anyone who's ever been near a breeding bull knows the signs: snorting, pawing, head low. He was warning them. Karen patted his flank and smiled to cameras. "See? Harmless." And then he charged. The ground shook, dust billowed, and 200 people screamed. scattering in every direction. Parents yanked their kids over fences. Women stumbled in heels. Men cursed and shoved to get clear. Karen dropped her bullhorn and ran faster than I thought those designer shoes allowed, shrieking about vicious animals as her neon vest flapped behind her like a surrender flag. Thunder stopped short after reclaiming his space. Calm as Sunday morning again. But the damage was done. Every camera caught it. Karen opening the gate. Karen waving families inside. Karen putting children in harm's way. A father clutched his son and shouted, "That woman nearly got us killed. She said they were safe." The crowd turned, not on me, but on her. And then Maxine stepped up, handing reporters thick files. This HOA is expired. Every permit, every authority she claims is fraudulent. Sheriff Thompson played the midnight video of Brad cutting my electric fence, and Agent Ramirez from the FBI, who'd been waiting for the right moment, strode forward and said, "Commissioner Walker, we need to talk about your financial ties to Ms. Whitfield." The whole rotten empire collapsed right there in my pasture, in front of every family Karen had lied to. She tried to grab a mic and scream about conspiracies, but it was useless. The evidence was too thick, the cameras too sharp, the truth too loud. By sunset, she sat alone in her SUV, makeup streaked, staring at papers that spelled the end of her career, while Williams, her political boyfriend, was being led away by federal agents. I leaned on the fence, watching dust settle over the trampled field, and for the first time in months, I felt peace crawl back into my chest. She'd tried to bury me under lies and paper, but instead she'd dug her own grave, right here on the land she tried to steal. And the lesson I walked away with is simple. When bullies build their power on fraud and fear, all it takes is patience, proof, and a little push from the truth to watch them destroy themselves.